Okay.
Okay, since it's 5:30, I'm going to be Emily today. She's not feeling well.
Emily.
Hi, Emily. Hi, Emily. And we're going to call to order the Educational Programs and Services for March 20th, 2025. And with that, we have JP and Trina here, and we have members in the audience. Thank you. And I'm going to move right to the approval of the February 20th minutes.
Motion.
Second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Next, we're going to move on to a second step overview with our building administrators, Dr. Farina and Ms. Rothermel.
Thanks, can I just? Yep, go ahead. Just for context sake, we approved Second Step as our Tier 1 social emotional learning curriculum probably 6 years ago. We're sharing this as an overview tonight because it is, the SEL competencies are outlined in our comprehensive plan. And we have, in previous years, afforded public the opportunity to come and look at it. But as we refresh the comprehensive plan, we want to make sure it's accessible for inspection. And so we're just going to do a high-level overview tonight, and then it'll sit out. These are some additional copies. Gotcha. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, so we've got a couple kits there. I believe we have K-3 there, and then there's also digital access to some of the upper grades as well. And we'll let the principals talk about that in a second. I told Dr. Farina I was going to use Puppy, the puppy puppet, as part of my presentation, but I thought I'd let him sit. So Second Step was here when I got here, and we implemented it that first year. And it really is just an opportunity to equip students with the SEL skills that they need to talk about navigating challenging situations, building positive relationships, managing their emotions, and problem solving and conflict resolution, goal setting, things like that. And so, through the instruction of SEL skills, it helps to create that safe and supportive learning environment that we know. And if kids are feeling good about their learning environment, they're able to problem solve, they're able to self-regulate and have positive relationship with their peers. We know that they're more comfortable in school, and ultimately that will lead to increased academic performance. So in the K-5 units of study, and linked there are all of the lessons, and you'll see that reflected in these kits. They're broken down into 4 main areas: skills for learning, empathy, emotional management, and problem solving. And so within each unit of study, it breaks it down into about 4 to 5 lessons where the kids are building upon their skills. I don't know, Allie, if you want to speak a little bit to some of the things that are in the K-3.
Yeah, managing learning challenge is one of the things that are on my announcements just now. Naming and second step problem solving steps, so it really it teaches students about acronyms and how to use these acronyms to help guide them through the problem solving process, so that they can resolve conflicts and solve their own problems instead of just always turning to adults to do that for them. So.
Yeah. And what's nice about Second Step is it really is a comprehensive program. It provides the teachers with their instructional resources. There's activities for the students to interact, but also the principals get information for their morning announcements, for newsletters, things like that, especially at the elementary level, conflict resolution, things that they can use when students are having peer-to-peer conflicts that they have to mediate. And so that comes in the K-5 kits. I'm going to skip ahead to 6 to 8, and then I'm going to go back. In 6 to 8, similar 4 to 5 units per grade level. Theirs are a little bit different concepts and topic overviews. They do mindsets and goals, developing a positive sense of self, thoughts, emotions, and decisions, and managing relationships and social conflicts, things that are really applicable at the middle level. So I don't know, Mr. Callan, if you'd like to talk about some of the things you see 6 to 8.
Yeah, so one of the nice things I see, especially with the goal setting and design, that's something that our students find, it's a process that they are not typically used to. So walking them through that process and then applying it to other areas within the academic curriculum as well. We're doing goal setting, not just as social emotional learning, but also for math and other subject areas as well. It's the same process, it's the same procedures, it's really nice for them. The other piece, we all know that the middle school years can be particularly difficult for students. So developing that sense of positive self and learning about yourself and being accepting of yourself and your opinions and beliefs, and learning to work with others and resolve conflicts. are extremely critical, particularly at the middle school time period.
One thing I know, I'm a middle school parent, and my daughter and I talk a lot about that, developing a positive sense of self. And so, you know, we talk a lot about who I am as a person and the way in which my behaviors affect those around me. So we have a lot of those conversations at our house right now, peer interactions. If you've ever had a 13-year-old, you know how that goes. So.
And I would say too, at the elementary level, that looks like teaching kids about using positive self-talk when they're dealing with a challenging situation, teaching them the words that they would tell themselves when they're trying to work through that challenge, is how that translates to the elementary level, so.
So I don't think anyone has any problem with like the younger levels and like talking about these things in school. I think these are great things. I talk about these things with students. I think a lot of the questions that I'm getting are about 7th and 8th grade curriculum, which hasn't been published in its entirety yet. I've asked for it. So you said you were going to, it looks like the lesson plans are linked there, like in their entirety, is that right?
Yeah.
Are there videos that go with these? And if so, do you use them? I'm a mouthpiece for questions that I'm getting, so.
Yeah, I mean, I would say any parent has the right to come in and inspect. I know that it is, you know, we don't have an open source for a parent to participate
Yeah.
without
No,
us.
that's okay.
Does that
I
make
just wanted
sense?
to see like the lesson plans. I still
Yeah.
haven't seen them for grade 7 and 8. And some of the questions I'm getting are about like lessons about sexuality, gender identity, like are those lessons in the grade 7 and I think 7 and 8 would be the ones where those
So-
might be. So those are the
Just,
kinds
you
of
were good.
questions.
They were put in the, in board docs. Yeah, in the board update. Those are the lessons, they're actually linked in there. So,
Okay.
I mean, those are the lessons.
That was in the board update, was there one Friday?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, so, I mean, and that's, I will tell you, when we talk about identity, I don't want to extrapolate that out to indoctrination, right?
Uh-huh.
You have to understand yourself and who you are.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily what they're ascribing to be, but they have the right by policy to inspect and
Okay.
review. It's challenging in some of our digital platforms because we don't have like shadow accounts where they could go in and
No,
see
And
it.
I understand that. So I'm sorry, did you answer that? Are there videos that go with these lessons?
So there's a wide range of
And then do
instructional
you
materials.
use the videos, or you know if they're used or not?
So
Yeah,
te-
I'm curious.
I will say, so teachers have access to all the lessons through Second Step.
Okay,
Yep.
They typically follow the format of those lessons.
okay.
As far as the videos go, it's probably going to be a case-by-case basis that how
A
that
teacher could choose, like,
Right.
I'm going to use, the video looks good, I'm going to use it. Okay.
Right. But
Okay.
we ascribe to the Second Step lessons, and they follow the structure of those lessons.
Okay. All right.
I'm trying to, I don't know if you want to open.
I will,
There's some videos in there.
not.
There are some, most of
Yeah,
those are like
there's
video
videos.
clips.
Correct.
The lessons are all done in our per period, so it's one day out of every 6 days.
Yep.
The period itself is 43 minutes long. The lessons typically do not take that long. Many of them are finished within 20, 25 minutes. It's dependent upon the discussion that takes place and how much student participation there is with that. So if it's a topic where students are really engaged in, that lesson could take the full 40 minutes. More often than not, it's in the 25-minute range or so.
Which is what that should be anyway. It should
Yeah.
be a starting
Yeah.
point.
I don't think anybody has a
So,
problem with
for
the
discussion.
time of it or the majority of the lessons. I think the questions I was getting was around like what
You're gonna
are
have to
these
navigate
like
on your screen.
the higher level.
Can you go back?
This is your screen that you're
lessons,
sharing.
Like,
It's up
I missed the board update, but that.
Yeah, so I just,
I'll get there.
I think, you know, lesson 2, grade 8, uses the word identity, right? So sometimes, without looking at that, you may extrapolate context. And I don't know if it's always safe to pick a word and do that. So, but,
No, you're right.
so if you look deeper into it, you'll see sort of what those discussions are about.
Okay.
But there is flexibility, right, in the way that teachers
Okay.
it's a resource. Can I say 100% they all watch everything and all use every artifact from the resource? That would be a lie.
I didn't know if you were
Yeah.
like, hey, teachers, show the videos,
No.
say these things, I didn't know.
We
So-
we have never done that. We provide the
Okay.
teachers with the structure of the lesson. Expectation is that they're following through with the lessons, but as far as the video clips and those types of things go, we've given some leniency with the teachers with which
I
ones they
see
incorporate.
whiteboard or chart paper,
Yeah.
sticky notes.
And so this particular unit that Dr. Farina asked me to pull up is talking about confidence. So they'll be able to explain what their agency is and the power they have to make their own decisions, and then to have it to talk about what confidence means and how to build their own confidence and name a time when they built their own confidence using encouragement from past experiences. So that's the unit that she has to pull up about
So-
identity.
And that's why I would encourage anybody who's interested in the substance of the resources to look at them.
Okay,
And-
yeah, I did, and what was posted was just the outlines
Right, but-
until,
So I would
guess,
say,
last week.
right, but our policy does allow any parent to independently request inspection of resources.
Okay.
I can tell you, in the 6 years, I've never had that done. And we put it on display twice.
Mm.
Thanks for coming.
So just kind of, if there's no other questions, just kind of for the sake of time, because I know we've got kind of a lengthy agenda, and everybody's got hard stops. But Second Step is a universal classroom-based instructional program. It is our Tier 1 instructional program for SEL. And it is rooted in CASEL, which is the Collaborative for Academic, Social, and Emotional Learning. And so CASEL identifies 5 competencies, self-management, self-awareness, responsible decision-making, relationship skills, and social awareness, from which they build their SEL core competencies. So this slide just kind of shows how Second Step develops on those competencies. But also I wanted to show you, that looks like it's about a duplicate. Second Step also has a really nice alignment to the Common Core state standards, which also, is what we build our PA core standards off of. So I know that's a little bit difficult to see, but the one area that it really focuses on are those speaking and listening standards, which can sometimes be difficult for us to incorporate into our ELA curriculum, just simply because we're so focused on the reading and the writing, which is, that is. But so much of what we do in Second Step really aligns to those Common Core state standards. This is just a second grade example.
So what I will say is, in the spirit of ease of accessibility, we are adding the links to those types of things to the website, because we adopted, K-5 has always been up there, but as we've added middle school, it was not as in-depth.
And then the last piece I just wanted to share with you, so we did receive Second Step as part of a partnership with Montgomery County. And so they do an assessment called the DESA Mini, which looks at student behaviors and the ways in which they interact with peers, the way in which they advocate for self, the ways in which they ask for help, things like that. So from 2020 up until last school year, you can see the improvement in our kids over time, and this is district-wide. I just took K1 and 3. We didn't have any second grade respondents last year. Our teachers have the option whether or not to respond, but we do see a really nice growth in student progress across those SEL capacities, just based on the pre and post assessment data that we get from the program.
It arrived in the district. It was born out of one of our comprehensive plans. It was called on that it was a Tier 1. It was part of our efforts to address foundationally making sure all kids had the skills for bullying prevention, as well as our MTSS framework. So that was the spirit of it, and then our efforts for full implementation of PBIS. And so we tried to package it. This was absent previous to that. So we've had it. It wasn't necessarily in our current comprehensive plan. It's mentioned, but it wasn't adoption implementation.
Any questions about it or anything else from the principals?
Why didn't we have any second grade
I
responses?
just think we didn't have any, the teachers were able to choose whether or not they wanted to participate in the DESA mini, we just didn't have anybody respond. So,
I do want to add to that, though. We do give the SEL screener.
Yes.
Now, this year, and so we will have, I think, some more comprehensive data
Mhm.
in terms of if we feel, you know, if it's making an impact on kids. So SEL screen, every teacher in K-2 reports on that, and then third grade, the kids self-report, and the teachers complete it for third grade kids. So we have lots of data there. Now,
Yeah, I really don't think the bulk of this is
Yeah.
problematic to anybody. There are some nuances that people have come to me with.
Yeah.
Is it talking about sexuality? Is it talking about gender identity? Is it talking about, so those are the types
Yeah,
of questions
sure.
I was getting, and I wasn't able to view
Yeah.
the curriculum.
Yeah.
So I will take a look. Thank you very much
Yeah.
for posting what you do have.
Yeah, and I would just continue to encourage, I don't think any principal would turn a parent away who has questions
Okay,
about it.
all right, thank you.
There's no cute puppets, though.
No.
I got you, go ahead.
Okay, no problem. I figured you'd get back to me, no problem.
I do.
So I just had a question. So, the increases seem, pretty like they don't seem higher than the other or anything like that. And I think this is great because of when children learn, especially like in elementary. Are we noticing that like kindergarten or first or third grade or whatever, are we noticing that 1 year is gaining more than another year based on development? Or is it just kind of like an increase, just kind of standard as?
Yeah, we're overall.
I think based on the data I see, and I see a very global view, I think
Yeah.
it looks like a pretty standard increase, but I'll leave it up to Mrs. Stevens to kind of see if she's
that's a
seen.
great question, and I feel like I would need to do a little more digging around.
Yeah, no
But
worries.
I would say that when just as I referenced, really our social emotional screener, that Pearson 360
Mhm.
screener that we use does substantiate that we are hitting, ideally when I look at the data, and I do that with my counselors, is are 80% of our kids hitting their social competencies,
For
social
sure.
emotional competencies. And they don't always come in every year
Mhm.
at that 80% level,
Yeah.
but for the most part, we get to 80-85% for every grade level by the end of each school year.
Great, yeah, I think, like I said, I think it's great because of how children learn, and especially like, you're taking care of something earlier, so that when they develop, they've already had this established.
Yeah.
So I think it's great, I just didn't know if we were seeing more of a trend, like, as they develop more, as they get a little bit older, like, are we noticing a bigger jump when they're younger even? So no, I was just wondering if that was something you guys had seen in your data. But no, it looks pretty standard across the board, but increases, even if it's standard, is great. So.
Yep. Well, and another litmus test has always also been our behavioral data.
Yeah. it's gonna-
Okay, yeah.
And so, as a building principal, they're looking at the growth from benchmarks in our screeners, right?
Mhm.
But they're also looking at what we hope is the byproduct is a reduction in aversive behavior.
Yes.
Or,
Less reports. of
Undesirable
bullying, Things like
behavior.
that, yeah, absolutely. No, of course.
And remember, our incoming kindergarten, I'm sure you would agree, Ally, it is absolutely fine and wonderful if they're entering school age with a blank slate, meaning having any potential skills in the area of, kindness or, the please and the thank you, and a lot of their, from PBSP, and their programs for PBS, they intentionally teach those skills,
Mhm.
as well as I'm sure, like this program here in the kindergarten level. So I would imagine there would be an awful lot of growth, but again, it's based on your students coming in.
Yeah, just to speak a little bit to what Dr. Giblin did say.
Dr.
Is we do teach second step, right, K through 3, but what we also do is we teach behavior expectations in every setting throughout the school. So that when the kids come in within the first few weeks, we're teaching them, and I think this happens also at the 4-5 Center at Hereford, we teach them how to behave in the cafeteria, on the playground, in the bathroom, in the hallway. Basically every setting, on the bus, we provide lessons, and then throughout the year, we provide additional instruction based upon what our data tells us.
Very cool. Awesome, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Nope, okay.
So I'll move on to my next piece.
Yes, go for it.
So last month, I'm sorry I couldn't be with you, but we took a look at our mathematics resource that we chose for Algebra 1. This month, I'm coming to you with our new resource that we are hoping to get approved for Math K-5. I have Mr. Lang back here, who was one of my one of a team of teachers that really vetted this resource process, and so I wanted to walk you through this a little bit. So some of these slides are going to look familiar to you. We went through a very similar process, but this year we were in the research phase for math 6 to 12, and we identified through our data that we needed a resource that was more aligned to the PA core. We needed something that was going to support numeracy and problem-solving development in our elementary mathematics. That was critical. We did some benchmarking. So middle of last school year, we took a look at some of our neighboring high-performing districts, and we looked at what resources they were using. So we pulled some data from the state, and any district that was 70 to 75% proficient in mathematics at the elementary level, we did some diving, and we said, all right, what math resource are they using? And so that's where we started our search. We looked at Ready, or iReady, which is the resource we have in front of you today. And Mr. Langenbach, we looked at 2, 3, 4 others?
Yes.
4 others? I can't remember. And they were all from examples from high-achieving districts that neighbor ours. Our curriculum team included Tessa Kiesel, Dana Rosenberger, Kathy Fair, Steph Deal, Meredith Riley, Beth Bianco, Nikki Hauer, Katie Bisbing, and Mr. Langenbach. And I will tell you that this team was ruthless in their research. We dug and dug and dug, and they asked hard questions, and we saw some resources multiple times just to make sure that we were recommending something that we were very, very comfortable with. We reviewed ed reports. We went to local districts. We reached out to the IU. We got some samples. We had formal presentations. And we decided as a unit that iReady Classroom Mathematics was the resource that we are desiring to move forward with for next school year. We have the resources for you, K to 5 up there to look at. I'm going to have Mr. Langenbach kind of give some feedback if he'd like to as well. One of the things that we were most excited about with this resource is it has a perfect score on ed reports. So if you're not familiar with ed reports, it's a really wonderful resource that reviews all kinds of aspects related to instructional resources, from digital content to readability to rigor to assessments to professional development. iReady Mathematics does have a perfect ed report score. And it's a very comprehensive program. It has digital content, it has assessments, it has an intervention piece, it has a diagnostic, it has a benchmark. And so we're very, very excited about that. I don't know, Mr. Langenbach, if you wanted to share any of this process or what your thoughts were?
Yeah, we really looked at a bunch, and we sat down, we went through, we researched, we talked to other people who've used it in other districts. This one definitely stood out. It was not my favorite because I'm kind of spoiled. I like EDM because I've been using it so long, and that was, we got their new edition, so it took a little persuading, but I've been working on the standards-based report cards, and we've been using some of these materials because there's a nice crosswalk between the standards, so we can link them. And the more I'm in there, the more it's great. The thing I like, we spent probably the past 2 years changing the rigor of our tests in math, using our old program, but adding multiple choice questions, more PSSA style questions. This comes with them already done. So a lot of the things we had to go back and redo, now we can spend more time finding ways to reach the kids instead of changing the assessments. It also has an online piece that we hope might replace Freckle and kind of keep everything aligned in the same system, which I think would be helpful. And they have great end-of-unit activities that are more open-ended, lots of steps, and I think the kids will enjoy it. So the only downside for me is the books are really big. I'm nervous about the kids with these big books just because they carry them around. But they are bright, colorful, and I think more updated than the stuff we're using, so it'll be a little bit more relevant to the kids as well.
Mr. Langenbach, what grade do you teach?
I teach 5th grade math, and I also teach accelerated, which is 6th grade math for that.
Okay. 6th grade to 5th graders? Or?
Yes.
Okay. And in your opinion, would this curriculum be like user-friendly for a brand-new math teacher coming in, like more so than other choices, or?
I think they're all getting better, being more user-friendly, because everything's linked digitally now. And we have, our math specialists do a great job of making resource documents now that have helped that, because that was an issue before when we would have new teachers or substitutes come in for long periods of time. But now we work off of documents that contain everything, calendars as to what we should be doing, where all the resources are. And we actually started to look at ways we can link this to what we already have so we can utilize the resources. So I think it will be very friendly for new teachers.
Okay. And that kind of speaks to my next question about, did you find it to be user-friendly for the students as well? Is this going to be a big adjustment for them, or kind of take a little bit of adjustment? Does it align with what you already have, or?
I think it aligns with what we already have. We use online platforms, and different teachers use different ones, and we all use Freckle as well. So I don't think it'll just be adjustment in the way they access the programs, but I think they'll be fine.
Okay.
I think it's important to note, to Mr. Langenbach's point, all three of them, well, she's now in instructional, oh no, all three of them are there. All three of our math specialists were a part of this team from all three buildings. So they are deeply entrenched in, they were deeply entrenched in the selection process. They're deeply entrenched in the adoption process, as if this is, gets the blessing of the board. And so they're going to be able to really help the facilitation of this for our teachers. So we're very excited about this resource and hope you will be as well. So just for some next steps for us, we're hoping for the board to recommend the resource adoption. It will go in front in the curriculum office for a 30-day public review. And then if approved, we will commence along with some professional development for the teachers, as well as some digital content for all the teachers, grades K to 5, moving into next school year. So we have some samples of all of the grade levels sitting up there for you when you have an opportunity to look at it.
Is the professional development an extra cost to us, or is it included with purchasing the curriculum?
It's all included with the purchase of the curriculum, yeah. Yeah, they package it all together.
And the support we've gotten from them already has been pretty fabulous.
Okay.
Because we were doing some work, and we contacted, questions answered right away, whatever resources we want, they gave us, so.
So what tipped the scales for you? Because you said you're a fan of what we had. What one thing made you say, you know what?
The cohesiveness of it, the ability that we could get rid of Freckle or exchange Freckle for their online program, which will help to feed. As the teacher, I can see what they're struggling with. That'll match up better. Now, we can, but it's how Freckle deems it, and then I have to go link it to what I'm doing. This will all kind of keep it together. And the math specialists have really looked at the intervention piece, and that feeds into them really nicely as well. So I think it just, everything works very nicely together.
So is that a fact that you're going to get rid of Freckle? Because I hate to add without subtracting.
It's Dreambox at the elementary school level, and I was in front of my faculty yesterday in the faculty meeting, that this would replace.
This will
the
replace.
digital.
Well, and that was I dug my heels in and said, we just can't keep adding things, right? So I will say, yes, for mathematics, Freckle
Yes.
is replacing for mathematics.
Yes.
They also use Freckle for ELA.
They just started ELA.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So this will be in lieu of the current digital content that we have
Fair
K to
enough.
5. Yep.
You got an answer, the definitive answer today.
Any questions for me or for Mr. Langenbach or any of us about the resource?
All right, we're moving on to compliance monitoring for continual improvement.
The real riveting.
Here you go.
Kim's like, okay, bye.
I have a problem with the agenda because it says Mrs. Giblin.
Oh, it says doctor at the top.
We will not approve this agenda.
Yes. That was my call.
You gave her All right, so I'll just explain, this is really sort of the agenda here as I go through, but it sort of explains as well what we did go through. So this is every 6 years, this cycle for compliance monitoring across the state for school districts. I think every year it becomes more intense and more requests for, which is fine because in the end it's going to show some data in regards to a school district. So for us, this started way back in August when I had a meeting with the Bureau advisor from, her name is Carrie. I met with her in August. She updated me on all of the steps, the expectations. And then from August to November, which was the on-site monitoring in November, I'll explain to you what those items there mean. Anywhere you see an acronym, I will verbally share what that means as we go through. And then the administrative interview, and I was quite thrilled because I asked for some of our building administrators to participate, and we had an administrator participate from every single building. So that was really good, as well as district from here as well. And then on 13 and 14 of November, that was the actually on-site compliance. So I'll go through what that is. January of this school year, 2 months ago, I had the exit interview with the Bureau advisor, as well as a representative from Patan, to sort of summarize the results for Upper Perk in reviewing all of the documentation that was provided. And then in February and March, and you were aware just for a little bit of the information that was provided to you on corrective action, and then where that stands now and the results of that, and then any next steps. So I'll sort of try to move through these quickly. At this meeting, when the advisor shared a lot of the information, you can see there and you can read for yourself. Over those 2 to 3 months prior to the on-site review of all of our data and documentation, every area that's listed there, so it's called the Facilitated Self-Assessment, or what they refer to as the FSA. We had to provide an extensive amount of data and documentation in the area of policy, programming, procedures here in the district. In all of those different areas, they all needed to be uploaded and shared. So for example, our district policy that has to do with positive behavior, those things were uploaded. Every one of those areas, ODR is the Office of Discipline, and what that has to do with, that's mediation, that might be due process hearings, all of those different areas. And over a period of time, the numbers that we may have had from parent requests, or even if the district requested a due process hearing. Risk has to do with restraints within the district. So obviously you're aware we do have a number of individuals, administrators, as well as trainers, or QBS is our de-escalation. All of those different areas, one of the areas is we need to report on, over the school year, the number of police incident reports that may have been filed. So any of these different areas, for example, it says IEE, that stands for Independent Educational Evaluation. So if a parent requests that, and that would mean that the district, if we're going to agree to that, we need to go outside of the school district and have a psychologist conduct a report. And so they're asking, over this time period, did the district have any parent requests? If we did, we're providing that information. For a number of these different areas, what we're providing are student files. So if, for example, graduates, if they're looking at last school year over the 23-24 and our students with disabilities and graduates, there might be, let's just say for a number, 62 students. She has that list of students that's provided to her, and then she will state to us, she will highlight 10 of those names. We will produce those files for those students, and then she does a review in all of those areas, and then reports out on, which I'll explain to you in the results of that. But every one of these, there was a lot of documentation and data that needed to be uploaded and provided to the Bureau advisor for review. Any questions? Oh, I think I have to go up here. So this is what I was talking about, the administrative interview, which was, I think it was the date of that. Hold on one second.
November 12th?
I think it was, I'm going to tell you here, November 12th. Sorry.
Just a hunch.
Just a good catch. So this really, okay, are you good here? This really just talked about a lot of what I was just talking about, the areas that we needed to submit. So part of what was required, we needed to conduct student surveys, we needed to conduct parent surveys, and we had a number of our teachers also complete surveys. And then these were the results, which we shared, and we needed to present to the advisor what we did find. So you can see survey results here. I won't go through, it looks a little small, but what came out.
High-level summary, Carol.
What came out of some of that was some recommendations, right? So we know we're always going to come out with some needs that we see and then some strengths. However, some of the areas that we found, next steps, recommendations, school connectedness and students feeling, participating in school functions. So yeah, obviously we have a number of students that do participate in those areas, thank you.
Yes.
But the students that don't play sports, that don't get into activities, what do we do? And again, we're really looking at our students with disabilities. What do we need to do? How do we investigate further to maybe have some of that participation?
All right, do you want me to get out of this, Carol?
No.
That's good.
We had the parent surveys, we had 52 responses, so not a lot, but 52 did respond, so that's a good thing. You can look here, some of the areas of strength that were found as well as needs. I'm just going to jump right on to the next steps and what came out of that. Parent participation and involvement in IEP meetings. What I take from that is, and if I was a parent and had no knowledge in the area of special education, I think it is our due diligence from our LEAs, which is our administrators in attendance, as well as our special ed teachers, to make sure that our parents that are sitting there in front of us understand the steps, the process as we go through the IEP meeting. They're coming to them year after year, hopefully. We need them to feel comfortable to ask questions, what they don't understand, what they disagree with, what they agree with, so then it can be a conversation and it's not just, here's the information and moving forward. So that was an area that we took from there. And then we had the teacher survey results. Again, you can see from those who participated, which was a high number. That was our highest percentage because, of course, we did want our teachers to participate. Next steps recommendation, some areas of professional development. And you can see when they talk about LRE, that's least restrictive environment. And then disability categories. So what I see there is some general education teachers who are asking to learn more as well about what does special education mean, what does it mean to our students. When even if we're sitting in a meeting with parents, they might not be 100% clear on all of the terms and whether, sometimes you can just feel it or you see it and so you engage them, but our hope is that our teachers, and maybe it's not necessarily at the meeting if they need to gain some additional knowledge, but feeling comfortable enough as a general education teacher to go to the special ed teacher and freely talk and discuss. Okay, that would be that.
Okay.
Any questions with that? That was all through the interview. This was shared by our principals, were there. We all went through it. The Bureau advisor was there. Why do we talk about those things? Because we were provided with specific questions. If I can recall, there was 25 questions, and we needed to address all of them with her. And that's considered your pre-interview as part of this process. Next thing was on-site was the 2 days that they physically, so on the Tuesday, or November the 12th is when we did the interview. On Wednesday and Thursday of that week, the 12th or the 13th and 14th, on-site is the Bureau advisor for 2 days. And then there are 3 peer monitors who also attend. There were 10 student files, and we needed to provide and have them, they were all prepared for them when they did come. And it's really pulling the most recent evaluation report, our student IEPs, and the other additional documents that come with that. And so again, when I do go into the executive summary of that, there is, and this is an area, I don't know if you recall, but a year or two ago, I actually became a peer monitor. I thought it might benefit us to really understand what this was. So those individuals who came here, I had the ability to do it a year ago in other districts to sort of a similar thing. So part of that process over those 2 days was classroom observation. So the peer monitor needed to go in and observe the student. And these kids were divided, it was from K to 12. And then there were interviews with, for these 10 students, there was an interview between the peer monitor and the 10 special education teachers, the 10 gen ed teachers, and then they had to contact the parents of these 10 students as well.
How many parents participated in the interview?
Well, so what happens is, and even when I did it, it's the same thing. You need to attempt to, you're calling them, you're emailing them. We pretty much, as long as I think the peer monitor is making the effort, I've never, when I did it, but here, we don't have the exact number of it, but I do believe the percentage of parent participation in it was pretty high.
Yeah, we also reached out to parents to kind of give them a
Yeah.
heads up that they would be contacted.
Yeah, it's a good
In
point.
the hopes that, you know,
They'd be prepared,
they'd be
ready to
prepared.
go.
Yes, yes.
And then this would be the January, the exit interview that occurred. Okay. So this, now jumping through to the end result, the executive summary, and I think, and these are the areas that it will talk about and go over, and how did the district actually do after submitting all of that work? Perfect. So I'm going to skip down and go through here. Okay, so when I talk to you about the SSA, so that is the peer monitors going through, each one has a file of a student. And also, actually, in this piece, this was documentation that we had to submit to the Bureau advisor. Everything we uploaded, or had uploaded, shared information on all of those areas at the beginning I talked about. You can see through here, in her review and her summary, the school district, were we in compliance, were we out of compliance? So basically, we don't, what I'll share with you is we don't want to see a number next to out of compliance. I'm just saying.
For any reason. Yep. No matter what the topic is.
So far, so good. Keep scrolling.
Yeah. So as you can see, the district wasn't found to be out of compliance in any of the areas that she did review, which is really good for that area. And then another area that we talked about, so if you look here, and I did share on that, and I'll kind of go through that. They look at, these are the areas that they really focus in on. And so, is there an improvement plan required? And I think I shared this with you at a prior meeting just generally. The two areas were LRE, or least restrictive environment, but it was least restrictive environment for students placed out of the district, so an alternative schooling. And then the other area is participation in PSSA and then PASA. Literally, I think the most important word is the first one, participation. It is not how students did. It's not how they perform. It is literally if a student used their pencil, and even as the Bureau advisor said to me, she said, Carol, if they literally, their name is on it, and they do the first one, and then you're seeing there's frustration, but they've completed one of them, they participated. So this is literally, right, this has nothing to do with performance. It's our students that are willing for either, and our kids with disabilities, agreeing to participate. And in the end, the district only has, in the end, a parent can opt their child out. So we'll be working on an improvement plan in that area.
And this is the same subgroup, the students that are placed outside the district as the least restrictive environment?
No. So there are two different improvement plans, and the one for the least restrictive, is that what you're asking? That plan will strictly focus on our students and our numbers for the kids that are placed out of district.
Okay.
Did I answer?
So the participation in PSSAs is.
That's a second improvement plan.
Got it.
So we have 2 improvement plans that we have to develop. They do give us, for some reason, 6 months to develop. The improvement plans are not due until July 12th. So, but yeah, 2 different ones. And just something to think about, and we've said this before, for the least restrictive environment for our kids placed out of district, I think it's important to remember that if we have 3,200 kids in Upper Perk and they have 18,000 in Central Bucks, it's very likely Central Bucks will have every type of program available in the area of special education. Upper Perkiomen, remember, we have to be able to sustain every program that we do have. So being a smaller district, it may be, if we're not going to be able K through 12 to sustain an MDS program, it may be that we're looking to place a student because that is the least restrictive and that's their needs.
And I would say sometimes the population that's placed out of district, we've tried district programming, and there could be a need that we can't meet.
Yeah.
Or the behavior might be disruptive to the academic environment. So
Which is why they're somewhere else.
we've long discussed alternative programming in district, but that comes with a whole host of other scenarios.
And we'll continue to look at that again,
Sure,
right, Dr.
we
Farina?
will.
With that new improvement plan
Yes,
due July.
yes.
Okay, so this was, again, continuing to review everything that was submitted. So when these peer monitors came and they had their file and needed to ask, there's a number of check boxes, it's all done electronically, and their responses in reviewing the student files. These were the results of that. So, and if you want to look at 990 questions were asked for each student. And that's looking at evaluation reports, that's looking at IEPs, that's looking at permissions, which totals up to that. So that's a lot. Out of the 990, for those 10 student files, Upper Perk was found to be in compliance for 984. And 6 of those, there were questions or to be found not in compliance. And I will sort of address that as well. Any questions with that or what that sort of means?
Well, just an aside, will any of those 6, say 6, become some of our issues why we get in complaints?
No. So what I can say with those 6, and I will literally be explaining to you what those 6 are. It's honestly, this is compliance, this is paperwork.
Okay.
So yeah, it could be a reason for something down the line that if something was listed there, but you'll see on these items, I don't believe so.
Okay.
But I'll share that with you.
Okay. Sometimes I'm not sure how they can answer, but that's all. Just making sure.
Okay, here were the parent-teacher interviews, which I shared some information on that. Observations, so they go in, they do an observation for the 10 kids. There's basically, I think it is 6 questions that they're asked in the observation. They're in there maybe 10 to 15 minutes, snapshot. One of the biggest, most important thing that they're looking for, student engagement. So all of you can see those questions there. 42 were yes responses, 1 was a no response. And what I can tell you that was student engagement of a student. So it was one of our high school students. The peer monitor went into the class, observed for 10 to 12 minutes, and during that time felt that the student did not appear to be engaged. So what did that mean? It meant something. Following that, we needed to reschedule where the viewer advisor now would come out and observe this same student for about 10 to 12 minutes, and what she needed to see was engagement, and then that would be fine. So I met the viewer advisor out, and this is a senior, a student at the Western Center. So I met the advisor out at the Western Center, I think, probably 7 weeks ago. Went in, observed, came out after about 12 minutes, and her response was, I'm not really sure why that box was checked. The student was extremely engaged. So that was good, the result of it, it was fun. And then here, let me get out here. This was our educational benefits review, found to be in compliance. And what does that mean? This was prior to them coming on site and looking at the 10 student files. This was in September when there was a list of students. We had to pull another 10 students prior to the November on site. And what they needed to do, they needed to review those files and basically see, are the students making growth? So what we did for that one, we pulled in a team. And we pulled in a number of teachers from our buildings to go through, and there's basically, in the end, for every student file, there's 10 questions. What we need is that all responses are showing students were making growth and progress. So what I can say is out of those 10 students, it was found that the 10 students are, that were pulled. So that was in reference to that. Any questions with that? Okay. Corrective action, so these were, I think, what someone's questions were in those areas. So I have listed up there 4 of them right there. These were corrective actions that were found. One of those, it had to do with aptitude and achievement test information that's included by the school psychologist. And what ended up happening was we submitted the RR, I believe it was like early October. The student actually had an updated RR that was maybe early November, but after the date of submission, we uploaded that. That was removed, like corrected. The next one there, it was an addendum. So this one was a concern where when you reviewed it, the parent had not input or provided input. And a lot of times, you know, parents, they may not respond, or they, but as long as the attempts are there. So for this one, to correct this, I met with the school psychologist. School psychologist contacted the parent, and what we did was an addendum, which is we're continuing to keep the same dated report, but we're going to add information now because we see this happen. That was done, corrective action, again, removal. And the next 2 have to do with the same student. This was a parent signature on the document. And basically, attempts had been made, attempts had been made, attempts had been made. What we say to our staff a lot of times, if you've made every attempt, in the end, you can, you do it through certified mail. We take that receipt, wait no longer, send all documents, and then send with that the proof of your attempts. We put it in the file, and if anybody wants, you know, respectfully, we would feel very comfortable to disagree with them and argue because, you know, unless we're literally going to go to the house, and at times that has happened as well, but the attempts have been made. So those 2 were reviewed as well, and then you see about the student observation, that one would be removed. Now, in order to completely remove everything after this, we have, and again, I'm not really sure why, but we actually have a year until next January to provide her 10 student files, and there's 3 records that they want to see. And these are K-12 sporadically pulled kids, but they must be over the school year, an initial evaluation. That means they're just going through their first evaluation. If they qualified, that's what we're looking for. So an initial evaluation, they qualified, we developed the IEP. I'm wrapping up, I'm almost done, but you can hurry up. And then okay.
You
So then-
exceeded your time. JP's got to go.
Okay, and then I already talked to you about the improvement plans.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, see?
I should have said that 5
Any-
minutes ago.
Any questions on, so overall, I will just share, I do think the district did quite well. There's always areas, it doesn't matter, that you need to learn, you need to grow. A different result may have come back, and we would have dealt with that as well. If we made a mistake, we work with our teachers, we do revisions, we make changes, but overall, did well here. We have those 2 improvement plans, which we'll share with you as time goes on. But that's, yeah.
You can
Thank
go.
you.
You can go.
Oh, yeah, right.
I still have 7 minutes.
Thank you.
Good luck, Autumn.
Yep. Thanks, JP.
Thanks. And I think my thing, the next I want to ask questions.
I was, yeah. I was right on. Any questions? Okay, we'll move on.
Yeah, next week, so it's virtual, so feel free to join us. We were talking about it tonight. It's called Understanding the IEP Process. And myself and Amy and Christine will be doing it together. And so we're hoping that we have attendees. It's been posted over the last several weeks, shared it with our teachers to share it out. So hopefully we'll have good participation. And then we'll have one more in April, I believe it is.
Yep, April 29th, the 1847 financial. Tentative.
Tentative, confirming stuff,
Gotcha.
but yeah.
As an educator, I'm always surprised at how many parents don't understand the IEP, the process, whether their kid has one or not. I'm like, wait, didn't they teach you this? Don't you know this? And
Yeah, I
a
agree.
lot of times, there are things they don't know that they don't know. So
Yep.
I'm glad you're reaching out like that. I hope you get some participation.
We've done it over a few
It was
years.
3 years ago.
Yeah, and we did, and we had parents participate. It was also via Zoom, correct?
Yeah.
Yeah, so we had some nice,
I was
dialogue.
going to
and
ask
questions.
if you have, I don't know if I'm framing this question right, but do you have advocates in town or local that you recommend, or do you know of advocate? I know they're out there, and they're not? I think they are. There are people who are like, I'm an advocate. I will help you communicate with your school. Like, do you have people like that you know of that parents or?
We
I know one.
definitely have, I mean, there are advocates that, whether they work for an agency
Right.
or they're just somebody with more knowledge and
Yeah.
won't go to a meeting with a parent. So yes, we do have them.
You've seen
Um,
I didn't know if there were some you recommend.
Yeah, I mean-
No, we don't typically
Okay.
recommend necessarily an advocate, because the only reason I say that is because the goal is for this to happen, where there is trust between the family and the school. And if there, some students have some outside agency supports, they're always, a parent can bring who they choose to a
Okay.
meeting. So like, we always express that. But our hope is that we're connected and working together
Yeah.
on
Like I
disagreements.
said, it's just a lot, and sometimes
It
they
is.
don't know the questions to ask.
Yeah, and the goal is like to have a good rapport with parents and families so that, there is open dialogue and they feel like their questions, concerns are being addressed.
But I always say, often people think that is an adversarial relationship, and really that's not, because the system is complex, right? From birth to adulthood for people with complex needs, it can be really challenging. And so, the spirit of that is if a parent finds somebody that they want to bring alongside, we honor that relationship because they're having conversations outside of the district to help that family move forward. And so, I always say it's not adversarial, even though sometimes school districts
People get very
see it like
nervous.
that, and that
Yeah.
is not what we're trying to
Everybody's
cultivate here.
Working together. for the
Correct.
student.
And I will say, even as, years ago, I remember it was sort of shortly after I came to the district, and there was a particular student placed out of district, and probably for 7 or 8 years, the parent every year had an advocate with her. But as the years went on, not even as the years went on, it was very successful, and it really was. They could then speak to the parent because they had a close relationship too. So it was a positive experience, so, yeah.
The norm is not for it to be adversarial, like when somebody comes to a meeting.
Collaborative.
Correct.
Yes, definitely. All right, comprehensive plan reminder.
So it is the feedback time closed. I'm working to, there's some language revisions that were made. We had about 15 respondents. Most of them were from our stakeholder meeting, truthfully. And we got 2 after it closed, but I forgot to take it off the website. So we're honoring that. Those are also in the board update. And then I'll be sending a revised version out to the board tomorrow, but it is on the agenda next Thursday. for approval.
Okay. All right. Any questions about that? All right.
Second.
Right, yeah, okay. So you make the motion, I'll second it.
Okay, I would like to make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, we did it.
Awesome.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you, Trina.
Thank you.
Trina.
I know you're.